So in the previous tutorial, we started optimizing our game a bit um, by creating the inventory container through code. Um, if you were playing around with it, however, you probably recognized that when you have the inventory screen up and you leave, that happens. And this has to do with, again, how every time you go into a new scene, a new set of code is sort of launched here, right? And when we enter this new scene, we need to tell gdevelop to go ahead and run our inventory check again. That's an easy enough fix. Let's see if we can make heads or tails of this in the code itself. So you might recall we're using a global variable inventory check in order to know when we need to go ahead and look at our inventory slots again and refill them or empty them, and then we'll shut that global variable back down to 0 so that it won't continually check this in a loop. Let's go to our inventory creation external event, right? This is where we actually created the inventory container. And let's go ahead and let's add one more empty event here, and we'll just put it in here. At the very end here, attached to our grouping, but not a sub-event of this trigger once. And what we're going to do is we're going to say at the beginning of a scene, right, whatever scene this is connected to, we want to run a check of these inventory slots. And that means changing our global variable inventory check to 1. Okay, that should fix it. Let's see. Yep. So now when it loads a new scene, it does the inventory check again. And of course, this still matches our matches Bob's inventory, so we're good there. But now we need to do a quick check on something else. Let's check to see what happens when you actually delete an item. So in order to do that, we're going to do a little bit of debugging like we did last time. Let's add an empty event here. Where'd that go? Here it is. Okay. Let's add an empty event. There we go. And we'll do the event as a keyboard, key released. Let's go with the tried and true D for debugging. And let's delete an item from Bob's inventory. So value of a global variable. Let's go down. Let's delete the sword. So we can do Bob inventory slot 2 is filled, and remember, if it's set to 0, it means that it's no longer filled. So what happens when we do this? Let's see. So we'll hit I first to bring up our inventory. Then we'll hit the D key. Alright, now, I wasn't expecting the sword to go away on hitting the D key, because all that did was change the variable. We need to hit I again to do an inventory check. Here we go. So notice it did empty our text object, but the picture object is still there. Excuse me, I mean it changed the text of our text object. And that's because, remember, our empty object is nothing more than a clear sort of 64 by 64 box. If we keep our inventory this way, we're going to just keep loading object after object after object into this and just using up memory constantly. So we need to actually destroy this object and then replace it with the next one, so we never have more than 5 objects on this side of the screen. So there's a couple of ways we can do this. I think the easiest way might actually be just to destroy them all and then recreate them. So let's go with that. Let's try that. So we'll do that in our inventory check. I think is probably the best way to do it here. Let's create a grouping, and we will call this one destroy slot picks. Okay, and let's add an event here. We'll put it underneath. How are we going to do this? Okay, let's go to common conditions for all objects. Let's do pick nearest objects because our x coordinates are always the same. And what we're going to do is we're going to choose items, and this is where again grouping comes into play. It'll look for any of our items in the group here. And if we go to our x position, similarly to how we set up our x positions, boy, that is loud. What am I doing? Oh, common expressions for all objects. And then we want to do position and x position, and it's x position of our inventory container, right? And it's of plus, again, our offset of our global variable. And this is inventory container, slot 1, pick x. Okay, and we will copy and paste this in and do dot y here and dot y here. Okay. And what we want to do is actually destroy that object. So let's go to objects, delete an object, and it's items. So this says pick from this group of items the nearest to our coordinate here, slot 1, pick x and pick y, and then delete that object. So now what we want to do is we want to delete all of them. So let's keep adding for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's keep doing our copying and pasting and just, whoops, wrong one. Make sure it's in a new, there we go. And let's just change these to slot 2. This will be for slot 3. Slot 4, and slot 5. And let's copy this and paste it. Whoops, come on. Okay. Let's move this underneath here. Now, can you see the problem if we leave this like this? Think about all the things we've talked about in these tutorials. What's going to happen if we leave these just like this? Remember, it wants to execute in order, right? So it checks the slots, it fills the slots, and then it destroys everything. Watch. Gone. So, what do we need to do? We need to move this up here, and that should take care of that. Yep. Let's make sure it works here too. Yep. All right, we are officially optimizing. So what happens when we hit the D key here, and now bring the inventory back up with I, it's gone. And that's exactly what we wanted it to do.